What's up, YouTube? This is Big Mike, and tonight will be an eventful night in sports. Of course, we have the NBA that starts tonight. I'm gonna do a video about that, and I kind of gonna do this one first, man, because as great as the NBA is, I gotta say this World Series right here that premieres tonight, that starts tonight, is rather historic because one of these teams is going to end an extremely long World Series drought. One of these teams. Of course, the Chicago Cubs will play the Cleveland Indians in the 2016 World Series. The Indians will play host. And it's interesting. I guess no matter who you're for, I guess if you're from the Chicago area, you're probably rooting for the Cubs. If you're from the Cleveland area or Ohio, you can be rooting for the Indians. But this is interesting, man, because you look at the Cleveland Indians, right? And you look at all the great players that played there in recent decades. Albert Bell and Carlos Baerga. Louis Taunt, Sandy Alomar, Roberto Alomar. But yet, their World Series victories go all the way back to 1920 and 1948. They haven't had much success on the big stage. They did make 2 World Series appearances in the 1990s. The first being in 1995 when they lost, I believe it was in 6 games to the Atlanta Braves, which gave the Braves their only World Series title during that dynasty. Well, I can't even call them a dynasty, really. I guess you can call them a dynasty in the National League because they did make multiple World Series appearances, but they were kind of under, they were, disappointing to an extent because that great team or great teams that they had with Greg Maddux. I mean, the pitching was solid. You had Greg Maddux and John Smoltz and some other guys. As my memory goes, as time goes on, my memory fades a little bit with some of the pitchers, but I definitely remember those 2 guys. They had some other guys as well. And they always had like good hitters, power hitters. Fred McGriff comes to mind. What's the guy that had the tumor in his back? Andres Galarraga. I remember some of these guys that they always had. David Justice a couple of years, but they were never able to win as many World Series as they probably should have. I remember they lost to the Twins in dramatic fashion, But anyway, they lost in 1995. Then 1997, the last appearance that the Cleveland Indians made, they lost in 7 games to the team that was then known as the Florida Marlins, now known as the Miami Marlins. And here they go now. Here they are in the finals. Here they are in the World Series, and perhaps they can win. They do have home field advantage, and if they do win, what a remarkable turnaround for the city of Cleveland. It would be a remarkable turnaround after having not had any major professional team win a championship in 52 years. This would mark the second time in the same year that a major franchise has won a championship. That would be remarkable. And then you have the Cubs, whose legacy is probably even worse. I mean, considering all of the earlier success they had. Before the start of the World Series, in 1903, they had 6 championship appearances. After the start of the World Series, they had 10. They made it to the World Series 10 times between 1907 and 1945. I remember reading about one of those appearances, 1932 World Series, I believe. That was the series where Babe Ruth had that supposed famed called shot when he stuck his bat in the air supposedly and called his home run, pointing the direction that the ball was going to go. And according to some, that's exactly what happened. Although some say he was just pointing to the dugout and was cussing at him. But anyway, that was a nasty World Series, by the way, from what I read. But since 1945, the Cubs have not been able to make it to the World Series, and they've had a lot of disappointing and just heartbreaking moments in the playoffs. They had that was a Bartman game, which I think that he's been unfairly villainized, because I think he made a natural reaction that most people would have made with a ball coming at him. Just different years, man. But they've had a lot of great players over the years. The Chicago Cubs, I mean, you can say what you want to say about steroids, but Sammy Sosa is one of the most significant players in the Chicago Cubs history. So I will mention him. But you had Sammy Sosa, you had Andre Dawson, you had Ryan Sandberg, and of course, the late great Ernie Banks, who I wish was alive to see his team go to the World Series. But for the first time in 71 years, the Chicago Cubs are in the World Series. And if the Cleveland Indians win this World Series, this will mark the end of a 68-year drought. If the Chicago Cubs win the World Series, this will mark the end of a 108-year drought. The last time they won the World Series, 1908, Theodore Roosevelt was president of the United States. That's how long ago it's been. It was so long ago that Harriet Tubman was still alive. Harriet Tubman. So, on with the games, and may the best team win. Give me your thoughts in the comment section.